Welcome to the 2021 Shelter Island Candidates Forum, sponsored by the League of Women Voters of the Hamptons, Shelter Island, and the North Fork, and the Shelter Island Association. I am Lois Morris, Vice President of the League. We've collaborated on these biennial forums on Shelter Island for many years, but this is our first Zoom forum, and we hope you will bear with us. The COVID restrictions to in-person gatherings imposed by our local institutions ultimately led to this format. This year's forum is in two parts. First, the 5 candidates running this year for 3 seats on the town council. You may prefer to call it the town board, and you'll hear both terms today: town council, town board, same thing. The second part features the 2 candidates for town clerk. Afterwards, time permitting, we will invite all candidates to return to answer questions posed by the public, which we received by email. Although the incumbent supervisor, highway superintendent, and assessor are running again, they are formally unopposed this year, which is why you won't see them here. Now, it is my great pleasure to introduce my colleague, Gordon Gooding, president of the Shelter Island Association.
Good morning. I would like to introduce the candidates in alphabetical order by first name for the 2021 Shelter Island election. There are 5 candidates running for 2 separate seats. 2 seats are for 4 years, and 1 seat is for a 2-year term, which this will be clear on the ballot. I'm going to start by just reading off the names. For town council, Amber Brock Williams. Amber is the incumbent. Barbara Jean Iafola, BJ, okay. Brett Suarez, Brett, we're going to refer to. Marcus Kasich, Marcus. Margaret Larson, Meg. The 4-year term has 2 seats, and the candidates are Amber Brock Williams is the incumbent, Brett Suarez, and Margaret or Meg Larson is for that seat. Okay, the 4-year term. The unfinished 2-year term will be Barbara Jean Iafola and Marcus Kasich. At this time, I would like to introduce our moderator, which is Kathy Kenny. Okay, we'll proceed with the forum. Kathy?
Good morning. I'm just going to now explain the rules for the debate, or what we call a forum. Again, the questions will be asked to the candidate in alphabetical order by their first names. So Amber will begin, BJ will be next, Brett, Marcus, and Meg, and we'll rotate in that manner. And except for the first 3 questions, other candidates may rebut an answer another candidate gives. Answers to each question are only 2 minutes. Rebuttals are 1 minute. I'll remind you on which questions you can rebut. At the end, after this is going to be a 2-part program. We're going to have the 5 council members discuss and answer questions, and then we're going to bring on the 2 candidates for town clerk. So hang around to the end. At the end, we'll bring back everyone on because we have questions from the community that we want to tag on at the end. Okay, so is everybody clear on the rules? Good. Let's get into it. All right, the first, what we're going to call a question, but I'm going to call an opening statement. So starting with Amber. What qualifications do you have for this particular position?
There was an opening statement.
Well, isn't that the question?
No,
Sorry.
produce yourself.
90 seconds to make it up. Well, I guess that's number 1. You can make an opening statement. On my apologies, Amber. You have 90 seconds to make your opening statement.
Hello, thank you to the League of Women Voters and the Shelter Island Association for putting on this forum. I appreciate this opportunity to speak to everyone. As most of you hopefully know, I am on the town board currently, and I've been there for the past 5 years. I'm hoping that I have been doing a good job. I know the issues. I have unique skill sets that I bring. I'm very hardworking and hope that you will all consider voting for me on election day. Thank you.
Thank you. BJ, you're next. You're on
Hi.
mute. Okay,
Hi.
go ahead.
I also want to thank the League of Women Voters, the including the Shelter Island Association. This was not easy in this pandemic year to pull this together and do it so well. I think we all look darn good. I'm going to give you a little bit more information about me than Amber did, because I don't think I'm as well known. I'm married to Andy Reeve. I have been for a long time. We raised our son here. We're grandparents, and we moved here almost 30 years ago, but I've been coming here since 78. And you know, in that pre-internet era, I did, as countless islanders have done, I've worked many jobs to just be able to call this place my home. So in fact, it started when I was here part-time. I wrote my master's thesis here while I transplanted tomato plants for Blaze Laspia and worked the grill at the pharmacy. That's how long. But I also worked for Hoot in the supervisor's office. I've been behind the bar, maybe you remember me, at the Cheekwood, the Ram's Head. I worked at CH Marine and at the school, in the business office, and as your assessor. So you can see I have both public and private experience, and I think both are necessary to be effective in government, because government has both promises and it has limitations. And I think my experience and my education makes me aware of both. Thank you.
Brett,
Good morning. Thank you for hosting this. I really appreciate it. I would also like to thank my fellow candidates. These roles are a huge time commitment, and it's not easy to put yourself into the arena. My hats go off to all of you for your commitment to public service. I live on Shelter Island with my wife, Kelly, and my two children, Jackson and Piper. I graduated from Shelter Island School and now proudly send my children here as well. I spent my post-collegiate life working in various roles at global banks, finally ending up as the Vice President of Commercial Banking. I'm currently a property and project manager on the South Fork. Since the moment I returned to Shelter Island to live here full-time with my wife and 6-month-old son, I have volunteered at multiple nonprofits and organizations. I was the treasurer of the Gift of Life Foundation and the board member for the Shelter Island Preschool, where cooperation with the town board was essential to preserve an integral part of the community for our young families. Most notably, I was the president of the Shelter Island Fireworks, a group that saved this beloved tradition from cancellation in 2015, and recently co-founded the Shelter Island Action Alliance in 2020 to help both our local businesses and our frontline medical workers. Over $100,000 was raised and injected directly into our local economy, and over 7,500 meals were delivered to 2 of our local hospitals and our senior citizens. I am fortunate to live here and have the opportunity to lead these organizations by embracing the philosophy that our strength as a community lies in our collective love of Shelter Island, and our ability to come together to support each other is in both good and challenging times is what defines us. Working together with so many wonderful people has been the hallmark of my prior successes, and I'd like to continue to do this service as much for you on the island that I love so much.
thank you.
Thank
Thank you, Brett. Next is Marcus.
Hello, thanks for organizing this event. I am a carpenter and a fisherman, and this is my 3rd election. I came close to winning the last 2 times. If you think about it, most people that lose an election leave. It's like they, in fact, disappear. But I stayed involved. I joined the planning board. I formed the Bayman and Anglers Committee with then Supervisor Girth. Originally, I was going to wait another 2 years to run again, especially since Meg Larson is such a fine candidate. Like I've said before, it's not about me, but getting the right people in there. And I believe Ms. Larson is excellent for that. But when the opening came to finish up Mr. Bebon's 2-year term, something seemed right about it. After all, I was in an election with him to get that spot. Also, I had a lot of people, both friends and strangers, even people inside the town, asking me to go for that seat. So I felt the community was in need, and it was my duty to step up to the plate. My biggest fear is that we are losing a sense of Shelter Island. People came here because it's not an overregulated, perfectly manicured, gated community. To me, Shelter Island is a very American place in that individuality is accepted. if you think about it, its history, the settlers that came here, the Quakers who first had to escape persecution in Europe, then get persecuted again in Massachusetts, and finally
Marcus,
got to
thank
shelter
you.
around for safety. Sorry about
Thank
that.
you, Mark. That's all right. Thank you. Now we have Meg.
Hello, I just wanted to thank the League of Women Voters and the Shelter Island Association for putting this on. Marcus, thank you very much. That was very kind of you. I grew up on this island. I went to high school here and then I left. I went to college, got my master's degree, worked in the world for quite a few years and then came back and now I'm working for the family business. My sisters live here with their children. They go to school here. I was a substitute teacher at the school for a little while. I have a very deep tie to the island. I got involved because I was watching things change. And as I watched, I realized that there needs to be more younger voices. There needs to be people who are invested in the future. And I'm looking to be one of those people. I've been attending all the meetings. I know what's going on. I have my finger on the pulse of all the topics that are important right now. So I'm hoping I can prove that throughout this debate.
Thank you, Meg. Now we'll begin with question 2 and BJ will be answering this first. You'll all get the same question, however. You have 2 minutes to respond. So BJ, beginning with you, what are the top 3 problems or issues on Shelter Island as you see them, and how would you prioritize them? Please explain your qualifications for addressing these issues. You're on mute.
That's going to be difficult.
I know.
The top 3 issues are water, and then water, and then water. I'm actually, that's facetious, but water is the number 1 issue, both fresh and salt. Because without that, health and safety, your health is imperiled, our property values are imperiled, our community is imperiled. So really, that is the number 1. Then from there, I think there's a whole host, but if we start with a comprehensive plan, perhaps that helps address the other issues, sort of down market from a comprehensive plan that are seem to be front and center lately, sort of such as dependable year-round housing, sane and consistent zoning, and taxes, because taxes are always on the front burner. So what specifically gives me, what are my qualifications to tackle these issues? I have a master's in science, and the science is experimental psychology. That's less important, but it does give me a pretty hefty background in statistics, data, research. And I think all of these problems could use a healthy dose of each. And just bringing science to bear to solve the issues we know. The other thing is I have a personal sense of urgency just in my own life, hitting 60 and going past it. And I feel this urgency for the island as well. And I don't know if that's a qualification, but it's a reality. The future is actually here now. We can't keep pushing it off.
Brett, you're next. You're on mute, Brett.
Thank you. My top 3, water, affordable housing, and ticks. Without clean water, we have nothing. We have no property values. We can't bathe. We can't drink. We don't have clean estuaries. We have nothing to build on our basis for what we love Shelter Island for, which is how beautiful it is. The affordable housing on Shelter Island has come to such a critical point that we have no room for new working families and growing families to live on Shelter Island anymore. The average real estate price for a single family house on Shelter Island is $1.8 million. That is astronomically high for young families to even consider to bear a mortgage of such proportions. The tick situation on Shelter Island is considered health and safety. I watched my wife spend 6 months in what I would only call a haze after contracting 3 separate forms of tick-borne illnesses. It is imperative that we act swiftly and use alternate means. It was nice that the 4-poster was tried. It did not work. We need to get a little bit more aggressive in how we handle the ticks, culling the herd, and moving forward. My qualifications are that I am a hard worker. I'm fully dedicated to what position I am shooting for here on town council, and I have relentless determination and a huge sense of urgency to save Shelter Island from the perils that we face now, not only for us, but for the generations that follow. I have children that are 6 and 7 years old, and I want them to enjoy Shelter Island the way we all did in the future. Thank you.
Marcus?
Like I said, I think it's we're losing a sense of Shelter Island identity, and we're caving into this sort of elitism that is so different from what Shelter Island really is. Number two is water, both bay and drinking water. The two are interrelated. I work with the Baymen and Anglers Committee, where we are very against the use of pesticides and fertilizers that run off into the bay. We got to do a better job of protecting that. With the drinking water, we have to find creative ways of bringing. The thing is that on Shelter Island, they try to do this blanket for the whole island, and every area is different. For instance, in the center of town, there's plenty of water, but it's got nitrates in it, and so that needs filtration. In places like Silver Beach, where it's water challenged, there is water there, but it's more shallow. It's down 7 to 12 feet, but Suffolk County requires that you go down 40 feet where you go into this muck. So we got to explore these different creative ways of doing that. And also, of course, ticks, every effort that we can make to eradicate them with burning, which we should do more of, which was very abundant when I was a kid, and we had much less ticks. And of course, culling the herd. So, yeah, thank you.
The other part of that question, Marcus, was what are your explain your qualifications for addressing those issues?
All right. Well, I've got a lifelong experience of with the bays and with water and knowing many people. And I like to bring in a lot of local people who have the knowledge of how to do this. I mean, we've already figured this stuff out 50 years ago, and I want to tap into that those people.
Thank you. Meg, you're next. Meg, you're on mute. Thank you.
Sorry.
That's all right. I'll remind you every time. That's all right.
It's pretty much the same trifecta that everybody else has been saying. Water, ticks, housing are really our big issues. When it comes to water, I've been boots on the ground for the last 5 years working on this problem at both the local and the county level. I've been involved in different committees and task forces to figure out ways to help deal with the situation. It's multifaceted, like Marcus said. It's not just the nitrates in the center of town, but there's saltwater intrusion in low-lying areas. And there's a lot of runoff problems that are causing pesticides and herbicides and fertilizers to run into the bays and estuaries. And there's easily mitigating factors that we can put in place in order to help solve these problems. The deer and tick is definitely a health and safety issue. There are multiple forms of tick-borne illnesses that are currently evolving. There are new ones, it seems like, every year. And so, culling the herd, managing the deer population, and looking into maybe alternative means would definitely benefit that issue. As a lifelong resident, I come from a family of people who have hunted. I know people who hunt on a regular basis. It is a very effective way at managing a herd. And then housing is definitely an issue. It's hard to find a place to live and work here if you don't make a certain income level. And it's hard to make that kind of money on the island and stay on the island. There are definitely alternative means of solving this problem. It doesn't just have to be us building affordable housing, but making more rentals available to people, I think, is an important way to look at it as well. I'm a problem solver. That's what I like to do.
Your qualifications, that was the last part of it for addressing those problems?
Okay. Well, when it comes to water quality, I've been studying this for the last 5 years. I've been deeply involved in it on many levels. I know what I'm doing. As far as housing goes, I think there are a lot of easy solutions. I have experience with building and plans and everything else.
Thank you. All right, the next question, we're going to begin with Sorry. Oh, Amber, I'm sorry.
Want to make sure I get my turn.
Yeah.
Okay, the top three issues that I think are water, and as everyone before me has said, we cannot be an island without clean drinking water. We cannot, enjoy the water surrounding us. We lose our ability to live here and be a thriving community without good water in all aspects. Housing and community go hand in hand is the next issue that I think is important. Without having housing for all demographics, rich, low income families, seniors, we will not have a good sense of community. And the last is taxes and infrastructure, I think, which kind of go hand in hand with the two above. We need to build infrastructure if we're going to clean up our water, but that's also going to impact our taxes. So we need to balance that so that the high taxes don't further erode community housing and affordability for people to live here. So it's a balancing act that needs to all be tied together. I don't want to harp too much on my past 5 years in office, but I've had time to work on all of the issues. To me, it's a puzzle or a tapestry. They all weave together. And the longer that I've been in office, I see how if you pull on one thread, it's going to have an impact in another place. I also have my financial background to, I'm the go-to person when, people are asking, how are we going to pay for this? Or what's going to be the impact on budgets with this? I'm also an analytical person. So I do sit back and think about things and analyze and try and figure out what's the best structure, the best way to move forward, try and keep people on focus and working towards the goal instead of going down rabbit holes that we can really frequently go down as a town. So that's my take on everything.
Thank you. Sorry for the oversight. The next one is going to begin with Brett. And you're all going to get the same question. The town code specifies that the supervisor is the chief financial officer or the CFO of the town. One function of the CFO is to prepare the town budget. Do you believe that the function of the budget preparation should be delegated to a town board member with additional compensation?
No, I don't. I think that the town budget is part of day-to-day operations of the town. And it should just be incorporated as part of our daily review. The town budget should be considered 365 days a year. Every single penny that is spent should be considered. And how we spend that penny, taxpayers' money, should be thoroughly reviewed. And I don't think we need additional compensation to do the job that we're put in place to do.
Okay, Marcus, same question.
I don't think so. When the budget is done, it's the supervisor and the whole town board gets together and goes everything line by line. That season is coming up soon. I don't see the need to hire another person to save money. That doesn't make any sense.
Okay, thank you. Meg?
I agree with what's already been said. I don't necessarily know that it's necessary to hire someone to do that job. I think it is kind of a team effort and it's something that is constantly reviewed throughout the year.
Okay. And next is BJ.
Let's define delegate and walk away. No, not delegate and walk away, but delegate and work with, especially if that person has a special expertise in budgets, in finances. Not a problem for me. And if they're putting in extra time, again, not a problem for a little bit of extra, but no, delegate and walk away is not an option.
Okay. Amber, same question.
I do think a little bit differently because I am the person who's been working closely with the past two supervisors, the current and the past supervisor, to work on the budget. That said, I do put in a lot of extra time, and as deputy supervisor, I do get additional compensation, and some of that does incorporate the fact that I do spend a lot of time on the budget. And whenever I walk into town hall, guaranteed that there, almost every day there's a question that someone will hit me with, like, where do we find the money for this? Or what code does this even go under? So, and I don't think that that necessarily should be like, we need to have support under the town board. I don't think that it's right that we have to worry about having someone with financial skills. We need to have a blend of financial skills, and it shouldn't be a requirement. So I want to build up the infrastructure within the town so that town boards and supervisors will come and go, and we have the people there in place to support this. And I work very closely with Shelby Mundy, who is the accounting clerk for the town, and try and mentor her and bring her along, because I want to, if I'm not reelected in November, I will be fine with that as long as I've continued to help bring her along to support the town going forward.
Thank you. All right, the next questions that we start, you won't all be getting the same question, but we will ask questions again in a rotating basis. And again, you have 2 minutes to respond. You may make a rebuttal, excuse me, 1 minute, 1 minute. I'm right, 2 minutes. I have a coach here who keeps giving me different signals. Anyway, you have a 1 minute rebuttal. I'll remind you, if nobody has a rebuttal, then let's not use it, okay? So the first two of the next questions concern the comprehensive plan, and we're going to start with Marcus on that. For more than a year, a comprehensive plan advisory task force members worked with the Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee, consisting of Shelter Island residents, to develop a comprehensive plan for the future of Shelter Island. To the surprise of most observers, the effort collapsed when the majority of the task force abruptly resigned following a disagreement with the Citizen Advisory Committee. That's not the question, that's a statement. Here's the question. What is a comprehensive plan, and in your opinion, is it important to a municipality?
Yes, it is, because it, am I on here?
No, you're on, you're fine.
You know, it tells us who we are, and it's a document that can be held up legally in court. But I want the comprehensive plan to be about Shelter Island and not, you know, lawyers in Connecticut or Boston. I went to some of those meetings, like 8, 9 out of 10 people I didn't recognize. You know, we have a comprehensive plan already, and I think it worked very well. We have to go in there and see what's changed. It accomplished a lot of the goals it wanted to go, but there's still new things to happen. I mean, what was it, like $126,000 to do the new comprehensive plan, and plus all those hours of this and that. I'm kind of glad it's put down right now. I think you're muted.
Yeah, thank you for reminding me. Meg, you're next up at bat. Do you favor moving forward with the comprehensive plan? If so, how can we avoid a collapse of a new comprehensive plan?
I do think a comprehensive plan would be beneficial to the town. It kind of gives you a guideline to work by and set priorities. I think that what happened was a misunderstanding in roles and what the whole goal was of the plan. I think that if it were to be revived, it would have to be revived with very clear structure in place, and outlines on what's expected of each team and what their goal is and what the mission of the plan is. And there's always going to be disagreement, and there's always going to be you know, some argument, but that's okay, because that's how you move forward. You know, you need to be able to disagree with people and have the conversation and compromise. And I think that if we can develop a solid plan for our future, it's important, because we are at a weird turning point right now. And I think without a structure to work off of, we're kind of just bobbing in the water.
Thank you. Amber, the next one is going to be over to you. Currently,
Excuse me, we have to have rebuttals to these.
what does anyone wish to rebut? Thank you. Amber, currently there are 19 citizen advisory committees and boards listed on the town website. What function do these committees serve in town government and its legislative function?
I think that they're very important, because we as 5 board members have, you know, our, you know, ear to the ground and listen to what, you know, people tell us. But it's nice to have another group out there specifically focused on different issues to help us gather information, bring specific skills that we don't have to the table, and help us analyze and give advice to the town board. The town board's job then is to take the information that's coming in from all of these different committees, and again, getting back to my tapestry example, trying to figure out how to weave them together. One might be focused on specific issues within community housing, and then the Water Advisory Board is also focused on water, and the two have to come together to help us figure out whether or not, okay, if we decide to do something with community housing in this location, we've taken in the advice of both of these committees, plus the other 19 committees as they, factor into things. So I think they're very important. They help us with gathering information, giving us advice. It's a very important role.
Excuse me, the next one is for BJ. Openings exist on many of the current advisory committees, and changes are in the works about how they operate. What suggestions would you make to improve volunteer participation?
Well, that's a tough one. I don't really have an answer for that. I don't. I mean, I think people are busy, and I think people are under a lot of stress. And the idea to add another thing to your plate is daunting for people. So beside what we do, which is outreach, besides maybe a little additional outreach to the community to say, you're welcome, please bring your expertise or just bring your life experience. And that can be done through social media, et cetera. But that to me sounds like a solution without a lot of teeth. But I think that's the best we're going to be able to do given the realities of people's lives here on Shelter Island. But I will say a year-round stable workforce base to our community would go a long way to helping this problem.
Thank you. All right, we have a new type of group of questions. Marcus will be, oh, I'm sorry, Brett. I skipped Brett again. All right.
It's okay.
Brett, there are times, I have so many instructions here. Brett, there are times when the town board chooses not to follow the advice of its advisory committee on an issue. Do you believe that the town council should explain in writing to create a record of its reasons for not following the recommendations of the advisory committee?
Yeah, that's a good question, Kathy. So yes, the advisory committees spend a lot of time and energy to send recommendations to the town board. Not all the time are those recommendations the ones that the majority of shelter owners might want. So the town board does have the right to say, this is not what we're looking for. But it would be nice to have some communication back to the committee for reasons why they've turned it down, so they can maybe then reassess and get their groups together. To step back, even to BJ's question, I would love to say that the reason we don't have more people stepping up is because we don't have enough workforce housing on Shelter Island. All of these issues are so intertwined. And I'm looking at these 19 committees, and I'm looking at Chris DiOrio alone on the community housing board thinking, we need more people on the island who live here who want to become involved. It's not necessarily getting the message out. It's having the resources. People are resources. Shelter Island's resources are water, land, and people. And we just need more of them. Thank you.
I think the question also was directed at whether a record should be made by the town council about its reasons for following or not following the recommendations of an advisory committee.
Yes, if that's the case, I am a very firm believer in document.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now we have a new group of questions, and we're going to begin with Marcus. The Zoning Board of Appeals has recently suggested adding new zoning districts, also known as spot zoning, on the island. In many cases, they comprise businesses, including island hotels and inns, that are presently non-conforming in residential zones. Under the present zoning laws, such businesses must seek variances in order to change their usage or expand their property. As you see it, Marcus, do you favor spot zoning in AA residential zones? Please explain your reasons for or against it.
I've heard about this. It makes me very nervous because, well, as you know, we have hotels in AA zoned areas where you can't have that, but those are all pre-existing non-conforming. And so there's a mechanism for that, which is the zoning board process. And I'm very nervous about it. And I think things move along as they are well enough that we don't need that.
Okay, thank you. Meg, one of the purposes of the comprehensive plan is to determine the long-term land use and development of a municipality going forward. Do you believe that the town board should consider the issue of spot zoning? I should remind people, if they have a rebuttal, please let me know. Do you believe that the town board should consider the issue of spot zoning without neighborhood input and before a comprehensive plan is in place?
Well, at this point, we're not sure that the comprehensive plan is going to move forward. So if for some reason the town is presented with an issue that forces them to address zoning, it would be negligent of them not to. As far as spot zoning goes, I do think that you need input from the community. It cannot be a unilateral move, I don't believe. I think right now, the way our pre-existing non-conforming properties get handled is pretty thorough. There's a lot of review, there's a lot of input, and I don't think that they, take advantage of the position that they're in. Does that answer the question completely?
For me.
Okay.
All right, the next one is going to be directed to Amber. Presently, in many areas of our island, water is contaminated by nitrates and saltwater incursion. The fact is not widely known. Indeed, some residents and homeowners may not be aware that the water in their own wells is compromised and not safe to drink. Do you believe that it is the town's responsibility to ensure that homeowners and residents have safe drinking water on the island? I'm sorry, that was for Amber. I'm so sorry. It was for Amber.
It's interesting because over the past 5 years, I have started to change my thinking on this. I used to think that, everybody's, drinking water, their wells were their own responsibility, and it was up to them to make sure that they had good water. But as I, dive deeper into these issues, I realize we're all interconnected. We have one aquifer, there may be different lenses, throughout the island, but we all need to be in this together. So we need to continue to push, I think, for people to, test their water. We push that at the green options, hand out free water tests for people. But we also have started within the town to collect, water test results and try and start to develop a database. More work needs to be done there where we actually have good information and do, a better job of, groundwater modeling and understanding where the hotspots are. A few years ago, John Cronin did an excellent job plotting all of those water tests. So we're moving along in the right direction, and we need to continue doing so in order to address, what we're dealing with and where we're dealing with it.
I think the question, if I'm not mistaken, maybe I misread it, goes more to, should the island make sure an individual homeowner's drinking water is safe?
I think that's what we're working towards. I mean, we need to continue to educate people to start paying attention. Do we want to force everyone to, get a water test and turn it into the town? I don't know if we want to go that far. But we also, as we start to learn that there are areas with sensitivity, we're starting to look at, okay, Monantic Peninsula has an issue. Do we need to start looking at supplying water in that area in order to protect people? And we've done things. Okay.
I'm sorry, I interrupted.
okay.
Again, I'll remind you, if anybody has a rebuttal, please let
Yes.
me know. BJ?
It's not really a rebuttal. It's sort of, I think it's to say that I think we could do a tiny bit better job of educating people. You moved from the city, you had a super, you now have your own water. What does that mean? Oh, it's great. It comes, it tastes good. I think maybe, at Thanksgiving, you have change your batteries in your smoke detectors and have your water tested. I mean, every year, just to remind people that this is something that they should be doing. Not government intrusion so much as a gentle suggestion. This is in your benefit to do.
Thank you. Marcus, you had your hand up, I think?
Yes. Like I said before, like different areas need to be addressed differently. So like in the center of town where there's plenty of water, but too many nitrates, we should encourage filtration. You can buy a filtration system for $2,500, and you get water that's 100% free of nitrates, 100% free of pharmaceuticals. It's got a UV filter that kills all the bacteria and viruses, and you're done.
Okay,
And I would rather spend $2,500 for that than $25,000 for an IA system.
thank you. I'm sorry, I did. Brett, I think you want to
Yes,
make a
thank you.
comment?
Yeah, I just want to be clear here. I think it is the town and the homeowner's responsibility to test the water. If we put it like this, if every homeowner on the island was testing their water regularly, we would have massive amounts of data to let us know what changes throughout the island. The town could work in conjunction with the owners to see what's changing and where. It's almost real time. And to Marcus's point, yes, we can have water filters at a fairly reasonable price, way cheaper than $20,000 to $30,000 for the IA systems.
Thank you. BJ, probably this question is for you, but I think you kind of answered it.
Meg is.
Oh, Megan, I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand.
It's okay. If the town wanted more information on water testing, they can FOIL the county for water tests done in specific areas, and that would give them the information they need. You just have to do it. And then as far as water filtration goes, when it comes to nitrates, you can get a point of service filter for your kitchen sink for about $1,000, but to do your whole house, it's more like $25,000 because you need a reverse osmosis system. So, you really have to do some research when it comes to that kind of thing, but point of service at your sink, yeah, it's about $1,000 to take care of nitrates in your drinking water.
Thank you. BJ, do you think it should be mandatory that homeowners and landlords have their wells tested and that the results be made known to tenants and real estate brokers?
I think it actually might make sense to make it mandatory for landlords. It might, depending on the size of the holding the property and all of that. But I don't know. I don't believe it should be mandatory. No.
Thank you. Brett, the next question is for you. Presently, the state, county, and town provide grant money to homeowners who install new nitrogen-reducing septic systems known as IA systems. Many homeowners are not aware of this program and grants. Do you think that promoting this program and funding it to its fullest extent should be a priority for the board?
Yes, absolutely. If there is money to be had for grants, it should be advertised from the rooftops. I'm very curious as to follow this in Barnstable, Mass. There is the EPA's partnering with the Barnstable Clean Water Coalition, and they are monitoring a neighborhood scale demonstration of an enhanced IA system, which obviously they're designed to prevent the nutrients such as nitrogen from entering the estuaries and freshwater ponds. They're running a 3-year study to determine the efficacy of these things. And quite frankly, if it is money available, that is grant money, we should be reporting it everywhere, on Channel 22, in the newspapers, in front of Town Hall, everywhere. How could we not let people know the money is available to get moving? We also have the 20% of the funds towards water quality improvements, which was voted by the 5 East End towns, extended from the CPF to 2050. We have 20% of those funds toward water quality improvement projects. Let's use that money. Let's use it. Let's go.
Thank you. All right, the next question is for Marcus. Do you believe that the grant monies currently available for new septic systems for residents only should be expanded to include commercial, educational, and municipal properties as well?
Sure, if there are grants and the money's available, like at the Presbyterian Church, would an IA system directly clean up their water that they have? I don't know. But to answer your question, yes, of course, if there's grant money out there available for commercial, I think they should take it.
Amber, you have a comment?
Yes, I just want to, it's a clarification. The current WQI grant program is available to commercial and institutions. It's just a different application process that's needed. It was set up such that residential IA grants had a blanket public hearing, and so we can be done by resolution, whereas for individual projects, commercial institution, because it's going to probably entail higher monies, then they have to go before the board to make their application, and then it proceeds to the town board for public hearing and approval.
Thank you. Meg, you had your hand up?
There are also county and state grants available for commercial applications. There is a 1,000 gallon per day limit on the amount of flow for the current pilot program, but there are commercial grants available through the county and state as well as the town.
Thank you. Meg, this question goes to you. Since its inception decades ago, the West Neck Water District has been managed by a volunteer board of directors selected from among its customers. Recently, the town council, without prior notice to the West Neck board or its customers, contracted the Suffolk County Water Authority to take over the management of the system. Some believe this action evinced a lack of transparency by the town board. Now, here's the question. What does transparency in government mean to you?
Well, it very clearly means that you're supposed to be informing people of the decisions you're making and involving them in the conversation. So for example, with the West Neck Water Board, there should have been a conversation with that board regarding the fact that Suffolk County Water Authority may be an entity coming in to help them. I don't think there's anything wrong with having these conversations. They're important. And, you know, if you're going to make a significant change like that, because it is a significant change, then everybody should be involved in the conversation.
Thank you. Amber, anybody have a response? Okay. Amber, this one goes to you. Given the critical water issues affecting residential, commercial, educational, and agricultural activities, do you think that the town would be better served by retaining a professional water specialist to generate policy that would contribute to more informed decisions?
Yes, and we have started to, there's that, the water group that's come forward, Kevin McDonald with the Nature Conservancy, I'm forgetting all the players at the moment. We have talked to them about some of the recommendations. They were doing an educational program on Shelter Island and then came to the town and spoke to us as well. And one of their recommendations was to hire a water czar to help us, a project manager, to help us move forward on water initiatives. And I think that's a good idea. And I'm hoping that we are able to get some funding through grants in order to make that happen, because it's hard to move things forward on Shelter Island unless you have a point person who can be dedicated to spending the time, doing the research, helping to develop the policy, finding out the technical details that are needed for anything to move forward. We need a point person.
Do you have any idea how that would impact the budget? What would that would cost? Or you haven't gotten that far?
We haven't gotten that far, but we are looking into, with our grants writer, how to find some money for that. And also if some of the WQI funds available at the town, state, and county levels could also help us.
Thank you. All right, the next question is going to be thrown to BJ, and it's about community housing. The subject of affordable housing has been on the board agenda for years. Recently, the Volunteer Community Housing Board was reduced to only one member. In your opinion, what would be the specific mission of this board in order to move forward?
Solve the problem. And I think that if you're going to volunteer, raise your hand for a board like that, you have to be on board with the board. So the idea that once that board is formed and it's given its remit to solve the problem, come up with community housing, you don't go on the board to argue that we don't need community housing. So that's the first thing. Let's get board members who are like-minded to solve this problem. And maybe a second realization that we are not going to provide housing for everyone who needs and wants it, but with a multi-pronged approach, and keeping it small but beautiful, I think that we can actually help out and give this community the underpinning, the undergirding of a year-round stable workforce. Did I answer it?
For me, you did. Brett, the next one goes to you. What do you believe should be the criteria for eligibility for community housing?
We need public input on that. I say that because if you're talking in terms of income, if you're talking in terms of family size, there's a number of things going on here. My biggest thing here is that if we do not act quickly, we will have no participants for any one of our, we're a volunteer community. I mean, this is what Shelter Island does. Everybody who I'm on the Zoom call with now volunteers for at least 2 or 3 different things. There's no question here, okay? But what it is we have to be very specific that it is very expensive to live on Shelter Island. And some of the housing forms now, the income disqualifies most people right off the bat. And it's like telling me that, like, yes, you may make a very low 6-figure salary, and maybe on paper that looks great, but on Shelter Island and in the East End, that is not a lot of money. And it's hard to make that money out here. You have to work multiple jobs. I have multiple jobs. My wife has multiple jobs. Creating a policy that works for the people who live here is imperative here. So we'd have to really look closely at what the income restrictions would be. As I said, the current form right now, it totally, people are disqualified right off the bat. So it discourages them from even looking any further. So it needs to be revised, needs to be revamped. We need community input. We need data. We need a little bit more data from our community.
Thank you. The next question is for Marcus. The Peconic Bay Regional Housing Act bill has passed both the New York State Assembly and the Senate, and now awaits the governor's signature. The bill authorizes our local towns to fund community housing through a supplemental real estate transfer tax of 0.5%. The voters in each town must approve this additional tax. Are you in favor of this additional real estate transfer tax?
I'm a little nervous about it. I mean, I see the need for housing, that's for sure. But I wish that some of the 2% money that's already there can be used for it. And from what I understand is that when we went into that agreement with the 2%, we can only use the 2% for open space and none of it for housing. And I wish that could be reversed around. Those are my thoughts on that.
Thank you.
I'm keeping an open mind, though.
Does anybody respond/rebuttal? Amber?
I think one thing just to point out is that if the 0.5% gets passed, it will tweak a little bit the parameters for calculating the 2%, the existing 2% tax. So it's not a complete 0.5% increase. So there's a little bit of tweaking that goes on. But I think that the money generated would be very helpful for us. The calculations that I did based on the past couple of years is we could, between $300,000 and $500,000 a year could be generated. And for a community of our size, that would be very impactful in order to get something done here. So I am in favor of that happening.
Thank you. Meg, this question goes to you. Meg, would you support raising property taxes in order to provide cleaner water and community housing?
That's a twofold question.
Yes.
I think I would rather have the 0.1% or 0.5% coming in through Beal's bill than raise property taxes for housing. I think that if we can get it through grants and some other means, that's a better option than raising prices. I think that right now, because we have all of these grants available, there's really no need to raise taxes in order to improve water quality when it comes to sanitary systems. I think we should be utilizing the resources that we currently have available, such as the county, state, and town grants through the CPF funds and other things. It's a complicated issue, so it really depends on what aspect of solving the problem you're talking about. If you're thinking about bringing water, something like Suffolk County Water Authority into the island, it depends on where you want to put it. You know, there are some areas of the island that currently struggle with a lack of potable water because there just is no water there. I would start with those areas before I would start with areas that have plenty of water. But that's a completely different conversation.
The other part of this was related to community housing. That is, would you support a property tax increase to support community housing, not just water, but community housing also?
Not if we could find money in other ways.
Okay. All right, the next question goes to Amber, and it's about codes and enforcement. Do you believe that the town's laws and codes are consistently and conscientiously enforced?
I do believe so. If I thought that they weren't being enforced, then I would be having conversations in town hall with particular people in various departments, taking them to task for that not happening. That said, we are in the coming budget upping the number of people in the building department because they are overworked and cannot always follow through on everything. So that's where things tend to fall down, is just a matter of bodies and time and being able to be out there inspecting everything exactly, timely, and as needed. So we are working on it, but I don't think that there's anything deliberate or nefarious going on.
Okay, can I follow up? And I don't think it's unfair because you're on the board. Does the code enforcement violations, do they go to the town board?
No,
No, so you're not aware of what violations, or is a report given to the town board, I guess I should say, about code
No.
violations? There's no record?
If we probably could request a record, I've never done so. Those code violations go before the courts. So there's actions that are taken by, job shutdowns, work that has to be taken out and redone. And then if it's, rises to a certain level, then it goes to the justice court and is handled there.
So the town board wouldn't necessarily know how many code enforcement violations are issued or the disposition of them right now. Is that correct?
That's my understanding, but
Okay.
I have not asked for that.
Okay. BJ, this goes to you. The town now employs a code enforcement officer. Do you know what the responsibilities of this job are? And I guess I've hinted at this, I didn't realize it. And whether a record of code enforcement violations is available to the public?
No, I don't know if it's available to the public. I would imagine the code enforcement, I think it's sort of explanatory, the title, enforce the code. Everything from, maximum occupancies, fire codes, to building codes, to Airbnb legislation that we have on this island. I enforce the codes. And I think, we were talking about the comprehensive plan actually before. This ties in. Everything seems to go back to this, to the spine of a comprehensive plan. In 2008, this was foreseen that, and I'll quote, with societal changes in behavior vis-a-vis compliance, and in keeping Shelter Island a special place, we must execute enforcement consistently and effectively.
Do you think
We
those?
need a full-time code enforcement guy.
Do you think they should be, the violations be known to the public?
I don't see why they shouldn't be or couldn't be. In other words, I don't see the need for privacy, but maybe there is a reason and I'm just not aware of it.
Thank you. The next question goes to Brett. In your opinion, has the town board been too lenient in its approval of new construction and expansion of existing houses that exceed the 6,000 square foot threshold, automatically triggering a town board review? Please explain.
I do not like massive houses on Shelter Island. We let a few pass through here that are over 6,000 square feet. I think it's a slippery slope. Listen, I manage 19 properties on the South Fork. I have a property in Sagaponack that has 12 and a half bathrooms and 3 people live in the house and they visit only a few times a year. It's a massive footprint. It's a massive structure. It draws power, water. It itself feels like a city when I'm walking through it. I in no way want Shelter Island to have such structures on the island. I think the special use permit for houses over 6,000 square feet, I think that has to be really highly scrutinized. I just don't see the need for a house that size on Shelter Island. Furthermore, what happens is some of these houses are brought in and smaller houses are raised and eliminated from the community forever, thus reducing the amount of potential affordable housing on the island.
Thank you. Any comments or rebuttal?
Yeah.
Marcus?
As someone who works on a lot of houses, I love going into a small cottage, like if it's on the water, and then you can really feel the energy of Shelter Island. But when you walk into these big monster houses, you feel like you're in a prison, like you're not connected with nature. And I wish people would realize that more. And perhaps in some communities where they're very cottage like Montclair, maybe we can lower that threshold of 6,000 to say 4,500.
Any comment? Any other comment? Okay, thank you.
I was going to weigh in, Kathy. I think that this is where I try to balance property rights and people being able to do what they would like to do with their properties and the greater good of the community. And I feel like when we have some of these houses that come for a greater than 6,000 square foot variance, we get to do some horse trading where we can put some limitations on what they're trying to accomplish that mitigates some of what they're doing. Because we've had instances where we've had subdivided, we've had properties where we've asked them to merge the properties so that instead of having two 5,999 square foot houses on two different properties, go for the 8,000 square foot house and merge the properties. And so we do end up with lower density on those properties. So you have to look at the bigger picture. So you can't just automatically say we're not going to do houses greater than 6,000 square feet. It's a balancing act. And that's, I think, what we try and accomplish.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Brett, you have a comment?
I just have to say that I agree that Amber's proposal there is very sensible in order to say, let's horse trade. But now if we're combining two properties, then I've lost another property where a smaller affordable house could be placed. And for me, I just can't see the sense in then just be creating massive estates everywhere on Shelter Island. It'll completely diminish housing on Shelter Island for all time.
Thank you. The next question will go to Marcus, and they concern professional management of the town. Managing the town and its financial responsibilities is becoming more complicated each day, due in part to the mandates of government agencies. Some communities have retained town managers or controllers to oversee many administrative responsibilities. Do you feel that the town board can handle all this business, or should the town consider hiring professionals who are trained to do them? Please explain.
Well, I want to resist hiring another employee, which will cost more money to save money. There's some sort of lack of logic there. But as I understand that things are getting a lot more complicated with state mandates and such, I'd like to study that more.
Thank you. Any other comment from anyone else? All right, moving on. This is for Meg. Do you think that the negotiation of town union contracts should be handled by the retained labor lawyers who specialize in such matters, or should the town continue to perform this responsibility? Please explain.
I think it should be a combined effort. If you have lawyers retained for this purpose, then use them. But I do think it's important for the town board to be involved in the conversations along with their community members. I think that's what makes Shelter Island special, is that we can have conversations with our community about topics like this. And, there's no problem having 3 people involved in a conversation as opposed to just the lawyers and whoever's involved. So I think everybody should be involved.
I don't know if a lawyer actually is used for this process, so I guess that may be the question. So if,
Oh.
would you, I think the question goes more, should we retain counsel to negotiate those contracts with or without the input from town board? Um,
I mean,
Amber-
yeah, Amber, go.
I
no,
was
no,
gonna
no,
say,
no, I'm sorry, I
we-
interrupted you, Meg. Go ahead.
Well, I think Amber was going to qualify whether or not we have a lawyer for this purpose.
Okay, all right, Amber.
We do have labor counsel on retainer with the town. And when we do negotiate contracts, we as a town board sit down, talk about what we are trying to accomplish with labor counsel, and then they speak on our behalf. One or two board members will sit in on those labor negotiations and go through everything. So it is a joint effort. So we are bringing to bear our personal wants and needs within the town, as well as having the legal counsel that's proper.
Do the unions have counsels themselves?
Yes.
They do, okay.
Yes, whether or not they choose to bring them in all the time is up to them, but they, their unions will provide counsel.
Okay, thank you. This question also goes to you, Amber. Some questions about the quality of life, liberty, and participation on Shelter Island. And these will be again rotated. The board requires its advisory committees and boards to post its agendas 48 hours before meetings. Routinely, however, the town board does not post its own meeting agendas until the day of the meeting. How would you feel about requiring the board to follow the same 48-hour rule for the sake of transparency and encouraging informed community participation?
I agree with that. I don't like throwing my colleagues under the bus, but in this instance, I might have to, because I do like to see the, for myself, in order to prepare for the meetings, I like to have earlier agendas, and as well as the public. I would like to see where at least a preliminary agenda is always put out on a Friday, so that homeowners who want to, travel back and forth between other places have an opportunity to decide on a Friday over the weekend if they want to, Zoom has made this all easier for people to participate, but in the past, people could decide whether or not they needed a couple days of notice to.
Who makes up the agenda?
The agenda comes from the supervisor.
Thank you.
We all have contribute to it, but it does get put out by his office.
Okay. This goes to BJ. The recent census reveals that the Shelter Island population has increased by about a third over the past decade. And it is very obvious that the popularity of the island has increased for tourism. Given this increased population density, what do you feel is the most serious threat to the quality of life on Shelter Island?
Too many people. No, yeah. No. I'm not sure that census number. Let me just start with that. Let's question that data, because it was taken in the middle of a pandemic. I think we might have been artificially inflated at that time based on the fact that the school was up to 260 during the time of that census taking and is now down to 200 in terms of the number of students. So maybe we could extrapolate from that and say the town has not gone up by 30% in terms of year-round residents. But I just do think you can be overrun. But what can you do in a free country? I mean, seriously, about the tourism, the day visitors, it's an open island. It's not the gated community. So there's very little. I mean, we can tighten up on parking regulations. We can decide what each beach should be a sort of a maximum in terms of visitors. There are things around the edges that we can nibble at. But in terms of shutting it down and throwing away the key, I don't really think that's an option.
I think part of this also was, what do you consider the most serious threat to the quality on the island?
Wow, I think it's inactivity on the part of, not inactivity. I think it's our failure to try to shepherd the change that is inevitable. It's our failure to put boundaries and guidelines. And yes, Marcus, I know you disagree with me on this, but it requires some regulation so that we can keep what the essential islandness.
Any reaction or rebuttal? Okay, the next one goes to Brett. In your opinion, at what point do the rights of the community outweigh the individual rights of a homeowner? Please be specific in your answer.
Yeah, thank you for that, Kathy. I will be very specific. I wouldn't want a 365-day-a-year yard sale as my neighbor either. In instances like that, or should I say, multiple barking dogs all day, every day. So there are certain instances where action must be taken. And those are two we highlighted ones.
BJ?
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. Your right to use pesticides and fertilizers impinges on my right to clean water. Your property rights to run your house as a hotel impinges on my right to the quiet enjoyment of my property. I think that those are the kind of balancing acts and different views that we have to take into consideration when we're making any decisions of individual versus community rights.
Okay, the next one is thrown to Marcus. Leaf blowers are undeniably noisy. Speaking of noise, some say that they also present an environmental issue by creating dust from the ground that raises pollutants in the form of bacteria from animal and insect waste and pollen. Do you think that the use of these machines should be prohibited or regulated in some way? Marcus, you're on mute. Marcus, you're on mute.
Sorry.
You begin again.
Yeah, I mean, it would be great if they were all battery powered, but from what I understand, the technology is not quite there yet on a commercial level. I think my wife would love the idea because we've got a leaf blower that has no muffler on his leaf blower and starts 7 o'clock Sunday morning. Bring that. I'll entertain a discussion on that for sure.
So you don't think they should be regulated?
I'd like to discuss it further, because I think Southampton passed a law where they all had to be battery operated. And then I think they found that the battery operated ones were not quite as, strong enough to get the job done. And, we'll see where it goes.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have a comment or rebuttal? Brett?
Yeah, here's the reality on this. East Hampton Town passed that law, and I've seen the financial burden which is on the landscapers to procure the new equipment. Okay, they do not work as well as traditional gas powered, and when the amount of time it takes to clean a lawn with electric versus gas, now the homeowner's now paying more in labor to clear the lawn. What might be sensible is maybe a little more look at the hours in which we allow these to operate. Marcus, I don't blame you. I don't want anybody running a blower on Sunday morning. That is my quiet day. That is my family day. I would be okay with part of the day Saturday because landscapers have to work. This is the busy season in the middle of the summer. Landscapers could be working 7 days a week. A lot of them do, but the power is just not there for the electric just yet.
Thank you. This question goes to Meg. With increased population on the island, come more cars, trucks, bicycles, baby carriages, motorcycles, and pedestrians. Grand Avenue and New York Avenue, narrow 2 one-way streets, are gateways to our town. Do you think that this increase in traffic, especially on these 2 streets, is causing a threat to the safety of our community and those who traverse it? What would you recommend to alleviate this problem if there is one?
I do think that we've had more people on the roads, especially with the pandemic. Everybody was out walking, everybody was out exercising, and it was dangerous. It is dangerous. You have people walking in blind spots in the middle of the street, not really paying attention to their surroundings. And I think it's important that everyone be respectful of everybody else on the road. Drivers need to be respectful of walkers. Walkers need to be respectful of drivers and stay to the side. I do think New York Avenue and Grand Avenue are especially dangerous for bikers and walkers, particularly. If we had a sidewalk in those areas, it would help with the situation. Grand Avenue is kind of a hard one to work on because it's already pretty set. It's kind of locked into where it's going to be. But I think if we had walking and biking paths in those areas, it might help mitigate some of the danger.
All right, these questions are addressed to each of you. We have time. To each of you individually. So they're not going to be repeated and we're not rotating, okay? Amber, do you feel that your responsibilities as paid treasurer of the fire department conflict with your duties as a town councilwoman?
I do not. There's only been one time where when the cell tower was being built for the fire district that I had to recuse myself from the discussion. I think that what's been nice about having the district treasurer responsibility is it has immersed me further into municipal finances. So I understand, all the reporting requirements and fund, categories and things like that. So it's only helped me further on the town side to understand an even more complicated set of financial statements.
Thank you. BJ, this next one is for you. On the subject of rezoning or spot zoning for businesses in residential areas, as a former town assessor, do you feel that such zoning changes would decrease property values in these residential areas?
No, they exist. The Pridwin exists. The Ramshead Inn exists. Property values have done just fine in spite of the existence and maybe somewhat due to the existence of properties like that. So no impact.
Thank you. Brett, this one's for you. Your expertise seems to come from the banking industry and community service. As a town councilman, what changes would you bring to the table based on your experience?
That's a great question, Kathy. Thank you.
I didn't write it though.
Oh, well, you presented it nicely, Kathy.
Thank you. Bringing
People together for a common interest is my actual secret, if you will. My vision is that who you have in the seat with you, working with you, and how hard we work with a sense of urgency is absolutely everything. It's how I was able to accomplish the Shelter on Action Alliance when we delivered meals, and it's how we were able to raise the money to save the fireworks. It's how I was able to work through the gift of life. It's working throughout multiple groups and sometimes in coordination with the town.
All right, thank you. Marcus, you have shown in the past a keen interest in water quality. In the future, would you favor mandates such as the installation of IA septic systems or prohibiting application of lawn fertilizers if they were proven valuable in removing pollutants from our ecosystem?
Well, I don't think we're ready to mandate IA systems at this point. We have only one installer on the island. They're going in at a clip of about 33 per year, and there's 2,400 systems on the island that potentially would have to be replaced. So that's about 77 years. I like the way they're going in naturally. I think they're going in as fast as they can now. As for lawn fertilizers, I think they are already regulated, but I don't know if anyone's following the rules. But like when you're growing a grass from the beginning, the first like 150 days, I believe, that's when you can use fertilizer. That makes sense. But then after that, I don't think it needs additional fertilizer that runs off into the bay. Does that answer your question?
Well, so you would not prohibit the application of lawn fertilizers?
Oh, I would.
Oh, you would?
You
Oh,
gotta do
okay.
it smartly, though. You I garden, and when you grow tomatoes, you have to put fertilizer in it. You have to. But I don't think they have to be broadcasted all over lawns over and over and over once the grass is established.
And the other part was, do you favor mandates for the installation of IA systems?
No, because that wouldn't, not at this point in history.
Meg, this one is for you. The Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee, CPAC, is on hold and the Community Housing Board has been reduced to one member. Internal disputes regarding mission of the committees and dissenting views among members seem to take the blame. As a member of two committees, the Planning Board and the CPAC, first, what are your thoughts about the value of the committees composed of volunteers to advise the town board? And second, if you are elected, would you favor changing the way advisory committees function? Well, I guess this is three-part. And if so, what changes would you advocate?
Well,
So what, go ahead.
yeah, no, you can clarify.
Yeah, I broke that up, so let me repeat
Okay.
it. All right, you're a member of two committees. What are your thoughts about the value of committees composed of volunteers? If you are elected, would you favor changing the way advisory committees function? And if so, what changes would you advocate?
I am in favor of a committee of volunteers because the volunteers we're going to get are people who really care about the issue that they're volunteering to work on. You know, they're people with a passion or a background in that topic. So they bring a lot to the table. I think it's important to have committees and listen to them and get their point of view and perspective. If I were elected, I would absolutely take committee recommendations into account, and I would like a lot of open dialogue with committees. And I think that answers it.
Well, you
Another
know,
aspect?
with the preface of this, I think maybe what's being get at would with this second part, would you change the way advisory committees function? And the preface to this had to do about two committees, I guess, that were dysfunctional. So I think what the question is getting at, would you favor changing the way the advisory committees function?
Well, I mean, in regards to the comprehensive plan, that was a unique situation in the formatting of that, in that it was the task force that was in charge of actually writing the plan, and the advisory committee was there to help advise the task force on what to focus on. So I think that's an abnormal structure for what we're used to. Typically, our committees respond directly to the board. So it's a communication between the board and the committee. And I don't see that necessarily needs to change. I think it's good to have a direct line of communication between the boards and the committees.
All right, thank you. All right, so now we're at the part where you all have 2 minutes to make a closing statement, and we'll start with Amber.
Okay. First of all, thank you for this forum. Again, it's been good. I think that there's 5 good candidates before you, and I think whoever gets elected, I think the town is going to be in good hands. So the voters have a tough decision this year. That said, I hope that I am one of the people that the voters decide to reelect. I would like to continue to serve the town. I have been here, I've been deputy supervisor for the past 4 years, and that's under 2 different supervisors, a Republican supervisor and a Democratic supervisor. So I think that speaks to my being able to work well with others. It demonstrates my, financial background has been helpful for the past, 5 years. My experience, besides, being elected for the past 5 years, I've also been involved in politics. I was a Republican chair and on the committee for years, so I've followed politics. My ex-husband was supervisor for 4 years, so I had some osmosis on learning what the issues are. So I've been around and involved for a long time, and I think that's helpful because when questions come up, I do have some of the, past knowledge of what has transpired and what's going on. So, I'd like to be able to continue to contribute in that form. I also have a grip on the issues. I know what's going on, and for me, sometimes it's a puzzle piece trying to figure out how to make this all come together and make it work for the town. I'm reasonable, I'm thoughtful, I listen, I want to hear other people's opinions. I don't go into all issues with an idea in my head as to what I think is the answer. I will listen. Sometimes I do go into an issue with what I think is the answer, and then I am swayed. So I hope that I get a chance to continue to do that for the next 4 years. Thank you.
BJ, you're next.
This was very informative, and I just totally second what Amber said. Can't we all have a seat at the table? I think we all bring something different, and I think we are really representative of this island. Just to make the argument for myself, which is awkward, but let's do it. If you care about your health, if you care about your property values and if you care about the community that we all love, then please just share my sense of urgency that now, the future is now for this island, and that we must tackle water, all forms, dependable year-round housing, sane and consistent zoning, and a comprehensive plan that guides all of the above. That and taxes too. So let's get a gas pedal on these problems, on these solutions. I want to end with a quote that I actually keep in my pantry. And here it is. It's from John Sawhill. He was a Nature Conservancy guy. In the end, our society will be defined not only by what we create, but by what we refuse to destroy. And I think that is perfectly illustrative of where Shelter Island is right now.
Thank you. Brett, you're next.
Thank you. And yes, to echo what Amber and BJ said, it is very nice to see this many people ready to step up for the town of Shelter Island. I love to see that. As some of you know, it's very difficult to get volunteers now for anything, but it is wonderful to see that we can have an open debate with no yelling, no screaming. We're talking and we're respecting each other. So I thank you all for doing that. It's wonderful. For me personally, I want your vote. I want your vote because I want to bring Shelter Island together for the common good of us all. If we do not act, what will we be risking? Would the island's young working families continue to dwindle as they have? Will our water be too polluted to even bathe in? Yes, they will. As it stands, young families who are critical to the island's survival are not able to move here to be a part of this community and contribute meaningfully. Young families are the island's future business leaders, teachers, firefighters, police, future town board members, and committees that make all of this wonderful thing possible. Driving home local legislation is about planning, partnering, educating, and executing. In my capacity as a local organizer and fundraiser, I use these skills every day. I've worked hard to make a positive impact on our community by fighting to save our time-honored traditions like the fireworks and founding these Shelter Island Action Lines to help local restaurants weather the pandemic while feeding our frontline workers. This is what we as Shelter Islanders do. We help one another. As the father of 2 young children who attend a school on Shelter Island, and as the husband of a nurse who works hard every day to provide the very best care for her patients, and as a neighbor and Shelter Islander, I can say without question that I come prepared with a relentless determination and open ears for all islanders, no matter what your party affiliation and what part that you want to do. I intend to be a councilman for all. Thank you very much for the time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Brett. Marcus?
Hi, thank you for organizing this again. It is really good to see so many people volunteering to run for office. I ran for it twice and I almost won both times. And I know it's a lot of work and I respect everyone here. And just like I said in my opening, usually when people lose an election, they disappear, they leave. But I stayed on with the planning board. I formed the Bayman and Anglers Committee. And I'm local, I'm from Shelter Island. I've got a 14-year-old in the school system here. Like I said, I try to say in my opening, my biggest fear is that we are losing a sense of Shelter Island. You know, people came here because it's not an overly regulated, perfectly manicured, gated community. To me, Shelter Island is a very American place in that the individuality of each person is accepted. If you think about its history, the settlers that came here, the Quakers who first had to escape persecution in Europe and then get persecuted again in Massachusetts, and finally got to Shelter Island for their safety. That history, that experience of feeling accepted is still in the foundational soul of real Shelter Islanders. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to thank the candidates for participating. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot Meg. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, all right, Meg, I'm gonna give you an extra minute.
No worries. So thank you for having us all here today. I think it was a very good debate. I'm very glad that we could all be civil and get our word out. I bring to the table a very practical knowledge of how to get things done. I have experience in management working with people from dynamic backgrounds, and I find that in a position like this, that's really what you need, because you're going to have people from all walks of life coming up and asking you questions and looking for answers and solutions. I'm an excellent team player. I'm an excellent problem solver. I have a very unique skill when it comes to finding the simple, elegant solution for a complicated problem and figuring out how to execute it finally. Unlike a lot of people at the table, I am not married and I do not have children. So I have plenty of time to dedicate to this cause. So if you need someone who can run around like a crazy person, that would be me. I have the time, effort, and energy to put into doing this job well.
Thank you. And again, my apologies.
It's okay.
I would like to thank you all for participating. We will have, as I mentioned in the beginning, questions that people in the community have submitted. So after the two town clerk candidates finish their presentations, I'll ask you all to come back on and we'll go through those questions. So I'll ask the town, I will also want to emphasize again that BJ, Ian Fuller, and Marcus Kasich are running against each other for the unexpired term of Mike Bebon. The other three town council members are running for 2 open seats on the town board. And when you see your ballot, that'll be evident, but I'm just reminding you again. So I'm going to ask the town council members to shut off their video and their sound. So we just have 2 lovely faces plus the introductions. Meg, you're going to put your video on? Oh, her picture's on. All right, so we'll ignore that. So, Gordon, would you do the honors?
Good job, Kathy.
Screwed it up every which way.
I guess it's my turn, okay. Running for the town clerk's position, okay, in Shelter Island for 2021. The incumbent Dorothy Ogar is here, and Christina Martin, manager of Over, okay, is running for that position as well, okay. With that, that's the introduction.
All right, so welcome to everybody who's again joining us for the second part of our program. Again, similar to the town council members, if you've seen that part, the 2 candidates will answer questions in alphabetical order and we'll rotate off of that. Except for the first question, each candidate will have up to 2 minutes to respond to a question. Some questions at the beginning are addressed to both of you without comment or rebuttal. Other questions are separate and you will rotate in answering those separately. So let's begin. You each, Dottie and Christina, have 90 seconds to make an introductory comment to tell us about yourselves or anything else you want to say. This is also by alphabetical order by first name, so Dottie goes first.
Okay. Good morning, members of the League of Women Voters, the Shelter Island Association. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for my invitation to be here today. My name is Dorothy Ogar. I am proudly serving my 44th year as elected town clerk after serving 16 years as a appointed deputy town clerk. My 60 years has changed a lot of the island. I've seen things happen all over. Some things are good, some things are bad. My heritage of family members that have served this town go way, way back. And these people have served as councilmen on the town board, town justices, highway superintendent, assessors, and many, many more. And not to forget, many police officers, assessors, and of course, town clerks. There were 2 before me, okay? It has been, as many people have said, it is in my blood. I can't get away from it. Okay? I'm very vested in this community. I provide affordable housing for 2 families here on 2 properties. And I am very concerned about what's happening in our community. And I love this community, and I want to stay here and be elected as town clerk again. Thank you.
Thank you, Dottie. Christina?
Hi, thank you very much for this opportunity. As you can tell, I'm not from here. I'm from Slovakia, but I live here. I live here with my husband, who grew up and lives on Shelter Island his entire life. We decided to raise our son here as well. We are part of Shelter Island community, and we call Shelter Island home. Currently, I'm serving as a clerk to the zoning board, planning board, as a clerk to the water advisory committee, waterways management committee as well. I am a legal assistant to the town attorney. I do a lot of research for the town board. I am a media department personnel. And last but not least, I am a member of the IT committee for the Shelter Island town. Therefore, I have a very unique position at a town and very different point of view on how town operates. And I sense a deep need for improved communication and cooperation. I see the need for the efficiency and transparency. I have this vision that we can make everybody's life a little bit simpler. When the resident will become a customer, and in my vision, the town clerk's office will become a single contact point for everyone. For residents, for the government, for the employees, it will become a bridge between the islander and your local government. And we can do this with implementing just a little bit of technology. And if you're not a fan of the technology, that's fine as well, because we will have more time to give you the attention you deserve in person. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the next 2 questions, the same question will be asked of each of you. So we'll start with Christina. Describe why you and not your opponent should be at the helm of the clerk's office for the next 4 years.
Yes, thank you. I believe that I bring a very unique perspective to the town. I am part of the town. I am already at a town hall serving in many departments. On the other hand, I'm coming from a private sector, which is unlike in current government, current town clerk's office, I want to say. I'm coming from private sector where I was in a position dealing with the government. I was on the other side of the desk, and I have a perspective to see what needs to be done. How can we communicate more efficiently? How can we speed up processes? How can everything get a little bit smoother? I see the need for digitalization. And I already done these things for the zoning board and for the planning board, for the waterways management committee. And we could clearly see that when the pandemic hit. We were ready. We were ready. We operated like nothing happened. We just stayed home. But we had access to the documents. We communicated effectively, and everything got done as on a regular schedule.
Thank you. Dottie, the same question, I'll repeat it. Describe why you and not your opponent should be at the helm of the clerk's office for the next 4 years.
Well, let's begin with 60 years of service that you learn something new every day. And everything gets instituted as we go along. And we are in all kinds of contracts with digitalization, and everything is done on the computer as much as possible. All we use is our fillable forms, which are provided for us by the state, especially for like births and deaths and marriages and so forth. That and all that kind of process just makes it faster for people. People come in, and then when we get them something real quick, they're very happy about that. And they say, well, this was such a nice, easy process. And they appreciate things like that. We get a lot of compliments, me and my team here. We work very hard to keep people happy. And we just keep working and we want to do so. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Dottie, this question, the next question will start with you.
Okay,
There's no rebuttals on these or
Right.
reactions. What are the biggest challenges that the clerk's department faces now and in the next term? How would you prioritize them? This is what she has written here.
well, like this past term, we, of course, everybody ran into the pandemic problem.
Right now.
And we had to work around that by opening the windows on the back of our building here to do business through the window because we could not close down the office. There was too much going on. So our team came up with the process to open the windows and just do it through the window. They're standing in the parking lot waiting to get waited on. And that's how we did our business. We never closed our office. Other offices that were in the town were closed down completely. And we couldn't do that. That the people deserve more than that. And coming up, you never know what's coming up. You never know what's coming in that door when it comes in that door. Now that we are all either masked or shielded, or we got plexiglass all over the place, we are working very smoothly. And it works very well. So I cannot say what will come up, but when it comes up, we will hit it head on and accomplish whatever needs to be done.
Do you have any sense of priorities and the challenge that you anticipate coming in?
Whatever comes in that door, they come in one at a time. And we just serve the public as they come in, and whatever they need, we're going to work to get it for them, which we do
Thanks.
now. Thank you.
Thanks, Dottie. Christina, same question. What are the biggest challenges the clerk's office faces in the next term, and how would you prioritize them?
Yes, the biggest challenge, I believe, is the slow digitalization. Exactly. We were able to close the offices. Not that we had to, we were able to, because all the other departments were already digitalized. As I mentioned before, we were able to get the stuff done anyway. Town clerk's office had to keep the window open because we are the only town on the East End that doesn't process payments online. We have the departments that accept the credit cards. You can pay your taxes with a credit card. This or next month, the building department will receive a credit card. We need this opportunity of the convenience to take care of the business from the comfort of your home. I have a husband that works off island and purchased a car 6 months ago, but he catches 6 o'clock ferry and doesn't come back until 5 p.m. There is simply no way that he can get to the town hall between 9 and 4. He needs to purchase the parking permit online at 10 p.m. while he's watching Netflix and paying his bill from the phone.
Do you have a sense of priority, though, in the things that you mentioned?
Absolutely. The first one will be to bring town services online. Be able to pay with your credit card online or in person. Also, the option to pay with a cash and the check will remain as it is now. It will never disappear, but the opportunity of the convenience will be added. And this will improve everything else that is there on the list, improve the efficiency and the customer service. It will improve the response time that we have. We have several litigations on the table right now, and it is caused by inefficient work, unfortunately.
Thank you. Now, the next questions you are, again, you'll have the same time, but if you wish to rebut or react, you'll have a minute. So just let me know if you do. So each of these questions are going to be different for each of you. So let's start with Christina. Please describe all the duties, responsibilities, and services of the clerk's office as you know them at present.
Yes, so this question is facing me a lot of time. people tell me, how can you possibly know? The answer is simple. There is a law. It is a town law, section 30, that fully describes powers and duties of the town clerk. All right. There are a little different in every town. Our town clerk issue some of the licenses, record all the monies, certificates of oaths, certify the papers. I am the notary public, if anybody's questioned that. And also, she can appoint some more clerks to help her with all these tasks. So this is a purely administrative task. And I believe I can do it very effectively since I've been doing it wearing a different hat already. So yes, thank you.
Thank you. The next one is for Dottie. How many people work for the department full-time and part-time?
I am full-time and I have 3 full-time workers, 3 deputies. And the one works 30 hours a week and the other 2 work 35 hours per week. We are not allowed to hire more people. The town board does not let us hire more people. We have a strict budget that we have to follow, and that's what we do. We cannot do that.
Thank you.
I have a
I'm
rebuttal.
sorry, your yes, reaction, yes.
Yes, it is not that the town board won't allow to hire more people. It is the state law that restricts the town clerk's office to town clerk and 3 deputy town clerks.
Thank you. Christina, this is for you. How are candidates for openings in the clerk's office recruited? Are the positions publicly advertised?
Yes, they can be. They can be. I don't believe they always been in the past, but they can be. You're interviewed and it's absolutely up to the town clerk's discretion who will be hired. The intention, of course, would be to discuss this with your other deputy clerks and with the town board and with the other employee in the town to see the needs. What's really the need? What kind of employee you're looking for? Do you need somebody who is well organized with the archives? Do you need somebody who is really great with the technology? Or do you need somebody with a really extensive experience? Do you need somebody with fresh and new perspective? This all needs to be considered.
Are the positions publicly advertised?
I believe that currently they can be, but there is no need. The deputy clerks serve on a discretion of the town clerk.
Well, are the positions that are open for deputy town clerk advertised?
They can be.
They can be.
I am not sure what was the practice of past 40, 60 years.
Okay. All right. Dottie, the next one is to you. How is the department structured from the top down? Who reports to whom?
Well, I am the town clerk and all 3 deputies report to me. We work as a team. We all work together. If there whatever project's being worked on, we all stick together and get it done.
Okay. Before we go to the final statements, we would like to address one question to each of you. I'm sorry, do you have a comment?
Yes, I do have a rebuttal for that. Yes, I have some idea about giving the town clerk's office a different structure, perhaps starting with the personal emails. Now, the town clerk's office has one email that has 4 people under it, basically. We never know who we're dealing with. The public doesn't know who is he really getting answer from. And there is no personal responsibility. If there is somebody who is responsible for the moorings, we don't know who that person is. And we don't know who accomplished or didn't fulfill the task. Thank you.
Dottie, I don't know if you're allowed a rebuttal.
Okay,
But-
that's fine, no problem.
But you can fit in your answer anywhere in the closing
Okay,
statement.
sure.
All right. Now, in the next 2 questions, these are again without rebuttal. And Dottie, this goes to you. How would you describe your management style?
My management style is, well, I don't want to say very relaxed, but it's very comfortable for everybody. Everybody just knows what they have to do. We get it done. If an email comes in and they ask for one certain deputy, that deputy takes care of that situation. And right on down the line, no matter what, if somebody wants to know about a bill, that's handed over to the person that does the bills. We don't just have everybody answering everything. It's kind of departmentalized, and that's the way it works well, because you can't always answer a question for another person. They have their own way of doing things, and they know the easiest and the quickest way to find the answer to whatever's being looked for. Okay?
Thank you, Dottie.
Thank you.
Christina, what management experience or training have you had that prepares you to manage the staff and responsibilities of the town clerk's office?
Yeah, so basically my entire career, my entire life, I've been in a manager position. My most recent position prior working to the town at the town hall was managing a hotel. I was in charge of hiring, training people, and be there with them every single day. I dealt with the contractors. I dealt with the booking sites, websites. I dealt with the credit card companies, banks. Therefore, I was the center point of entire operation. And as soon as I started to work at a town hall, I brought all this experience with me. And that's what I mentioned before. Coming from a private sector, it's a massive leverage. I can tell you whether the website we're using is the best platform we can have, or we can have something better. I can tell you whether the credit card processing fee is too high or suspiciously low. This is the lesson that only private and volunteer sector will give you. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to invite now each of you, beginning with Dottie, to make a closing statement.
Okay. First of all, this has been a great event. I really appreciate this. Credit cards were mentioned a few minutes ago. We are presently getting into a contract, so we will do everything through the credit card. Everything this has been worked on for the last couple of years. It takes a long time to get contracts like that straightened out the way you want it, because sometimes it's going to cost the town too much money, and we can't be put into a process like that. We have to make whatever conditions we do has to be the best for the people that have to do it, and the company that we go through. So we've got that all under control. We were supposed to be doing the building department in September, but something happened there, and they haven't started it yet. I don't know what kind of a snag they ran into, and we're getting through with we've been doing recreation for quite a while now, and that's working very smoothly. And you kind of just have to step into this and get everything ironed out before you keep adding more and adding more and adding more. So we have to be comfortable as much as the people have to be comfortable. We can't charge them too much. But I love an event like this. It's great to let people know more about our office. People are invited. They can come in anytime they want. They can come see how we work. Even during the pandemic, we had to come up with innovative ways to serve the public. And business was conducted via 2 windows, plus email, telephone, every way, letters. We still had the same thing going on every day. And other town hall offices were closed. So that made it even more responsive for us to try to fill into what didn't get done that way. If somebody wasn't in their office when they were supposed to be, we had to try to help people out as we go.
Thank you, Dottie. Your time is up.
My time, oh, okay,
I'm
I
sorry.
have more to say, but
That's all right. Christina?
Yes, thank you. This has been an incredible
This
experience,
is in that.
talking to the resident and the islanders. In fact, confirm that there is a desire for the digitalization and for the modernization. People do want to use their credit card, and the town clerk's office has been authorized to take these payments in 2020. We are reaching end of 2021. Recreation department had displays within a month. Anyway, there is no doubt we had some great people working at this town. They provided excellent service. But the question is, how do we get to tomorrow? How can we do the things a little more efficiently? How do we move forward? How can we provide a little better service? And perhaps you're thinking, I don't care about the technology. But imagine this, you come to the town hall and pull into the parking lot that is not that big. And let's say 3 out of 5 people already renew their dog license online. You will have more parking space. You will come in and there will be no line in front of you. And you will get the service that you deserve in person as you wish. And we will have more time to assist you efficiently. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to now invite all of the candidates to come back on screen, and Lois is going to be asking individuals questions that came from the community.
What are the green priorities for each candidate?
What did she say?
Could you repeat that? You deleted
sorry.
it one word.
What are your green priorities?
Lois, what
for
did you, 3 priorities? Okay.
Green.
What are- Oh,
Green
green. Oh,
priorities.
green.
Green.
So who answers this?
I'll just call it, raise your hand when you're,
Okay.
well, I'll just go by what's on my screen here.
You say green or 3?
Green.
Green.
The color green, environmental priority. Meg,
Hold on.
Well, improving our water quality,
They're gonna let them
preventing
raise their
runoff
hands.
and
Just let them raise their hands.
preventing runoff from getting into the bays and bringing herbicides and pesticides in,
I know.
restricting some herbicides and pesticides in the nearshore overlay in order to help heal the bay. Those are some of the basics.
okay,
BJ?
I to go back to an idea Herb Stelgis has been sort of tossing around for a long time, just to find some ways, some initiatives to help people invest in, utilize solar technology. One thing I did notice is that I have a ground mount system, solar system. I've had it since 2006, which means it's not on my roof, it's on my lawn. And after I put that in, I believe the code was changed, and now those things, as solar panels, must be put on a roof of a structure. I think we could get rid of that and go back to ground mount, because not every roof faces the right direction. So, Meg's right in terms of local, water is our most important green issue right now, the only green issue, but we could be chipping away at other things that have a broader implication.
Amber?
We are, the town is looking, and I'd like to make sure it happens, solar on various town properties. I know down at the recycling center, the roof that's going to go over the recycling center, we'd like to put solar on that. There's other locations in town that we could do that as well. And then also trying to, as we bring more vehicles into the fleet of town cars, that they be electric. And we have purchased 2 recently, and we will continue that into 2022.
Marcus?
I'd say runoff, pesticides, and clean drinking water.
Okay. How would you accomplish that?
We gotta, with runoff, we've got to control it, either by swales, hopefully by swales, so the water stays on the ground instead of going into the bay, which will further catch harvest water that would be lost, that would go into our aquifer. With pesticides, I would be all in favor of banning something like Roundup. And with clean water, I want to encourage water filtration in the center of town where they've got the high nitrate concentrations.
Brett,
Yeah, thank you. For sure, I agree. Pesticides need to be limited, and unless it's for health and safety. Just touching on solar, I love what Amber's saying. I want to see the town recycling center utilize the open space it has for solar. If we conduct that properly, we might be able to be pumping electricity back into the grid, which would then increase revenues.
okay, that's everybody? Yeah. Question, do any of the clerk candidates have are there green solutions to your office?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, Christina?
Yes, the digitalization can eliminate those piles and piles and piles of paper we're facing. Improve archives, creating the master list. All the effective work can bring a little bit of green in it. And exactly as Brett pointed out, it can come with increased revenue, as with the parking permits that were brought up online. You can purchase it from their phone, which resulted in $13,000 of increased revenue. Thank you.
Dorothy?
Digitalization has been in use in our office for years. We have been modernizing everything we can do. I have solar on my houses at home for years. They are worth the trouble. They are worth the money. Whatever you have to do to get that, to save money, to make it easier for people to pay their bills and so forth and live here, that's a good idea. Okay, that's the start.
Thank you. Here's a question. What is your position on the clear cutting of vacant land, that is removing hardwood trees by developers or residents? Does anybody have a response to that?
Well, it always hurts to cut down a tree. It was very sad to see the maple tree at the Cheekwood cut down, but it was sick and it was dying, and the limb could fall on someone, so it was dangerous. So it was necessary to get rid of it. In terms of building, anyone who has a house, they've had their lot cleared, because you have to clear it to see what's there in order to, install the house and the foundation and all the septics and everything like that. So that's how I feel about that.
Anybody else? BJ?
Yeah, I it's that issue that my property rights versus the community, the needs of the community. The community wants to see the trees, but I bought the property. We do have, in effect, within the 100-foot buffer zone, that you can't take down the trees, and I think that's a really good regulation, and maybe a good place to stop with the regulations. Like we can all see the reason and the need for that, and any further maybe is not in the interest of the individuals.
Brett?
I'm quite concerned about if you go down to Manhattan Lane, everybody knows where the trees were topped down there. I'm pretty concerned that is going to happen again. I would immediately be proposing something with absolute teeth to prevent that from happening again. I found that to be offensive in a number of ways, that those trees were cut down. It was unbelievable to me.
Meg?
The question's a little bit vague, but if you're just clearing land for the sake of clearing land, I'm not necessarily a fan of that. Some of it can be habitat restoration. If you're infested with a bunch of invasive species, then those plants then can take out the native vegetation, and it's important to clear them for the health of that piece of land, and also to maintain the habitat of the animals living there. For construction, you're going to have to clear some land. It's inevitable. There's a responsible way to do it. And it's also a safety feature sometimes. If you have old trees and people walk on your property and they can fall and hurt somebody, it's, something you have to consider.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, here's another question. What is your position on sources of funding for the town's unfunded pension and benefit liabilities without raising property taxes? Any takers?
So I'll go with that one.
Okay.
The town's unfunded liability, I know it comes up from time to time, and a number of years ago, there were, articles, across the country talking about, Chicago's unfunded pension liability. I think what people have to keep in mind is that the unfunded pension liability is looking at a number as if the town stopped business today and that we had to go pay out everyone's pension at this point in time. And that's just not going to happen. We're going to continue on with government. People are going to retire when it's time for them to retire. It's going to happen, in waves instead of all, a tsunami. So I think that we need to, the town's pension monies are taken care of by the state. The money's invested with the state. And so they manage it, and they come back to us annually and tell us, okay, here is your pension liability that you need to fund this year. And actuarials, tables and things, analysis takes place to make that happen. So I don't think that we have to, it's like a huge concern for us that we have to try and fund it all today and that we're going to raise taxes.
Thank you. Anybody else? On a totally different subject, would you support reconsidering the opt-out of retail cannabis sales, given the state has legalized adult use and tax money can go to improve the island? Who wants to take that?
I'll take that. No, I think we should stand by and monitor and see how this progresses in other towns. I would be too worried to allow any type of off-island entity or corporation to come in and set this up. There's too many unknowns here in New York as it's very new, and we need to take a very measured approach to this.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And also the state still has its work to do with respect to setting up the oversight board and things of that nature before anyone can move forward. So I think sitting on the sidelines and watching is a good cause of action.
Lois? Yep. And I would like to add that, if we weren't an island, I'm not sure I would be so against having a retail store. But if we're the only place on the eastern end of Long Island, besides now the Shinnecock Nation, offering this, I think it would increase traffic, and to what end? I mean, I think it would almost be an imposition on people who live here.
Thank you. Let's see, I think we have time for another one. All right, here's a two-part question. At present, the CPF, which is the community, what is it? The
Preservation Fund.
Community Preservation Fund is holding a little in excess of $2 million, which has been segregated for water quality improvement projects. Currently, a ceiling of $6,000 has been placed on reimbursement from the town for installation of advanced septic systems when the local law permits reimbursement up to $15,000. So currently there's a ceiling of $6,000, but in fact, you could get 15. First question, do you think this ceiling is appropriate? Who wants to take that?
I'll say no. If we're allowed to do 15 and we have the CPF revenues, which have increased specifically during the pandemic, and we're on this call talking about what we need to do for the island's aquifer, let's spend the money. Let's give the homeowners the money to make the changes that we need. Let's get it out there. Let's not sit on that. Let's raise the cap from 6 to 15.
Beck.
I can tell you that not everybody uses the full 15, the only people who have used the full 15 had extremely complicated situations, and they were voluntarily upgrading their systems in very sensitive areas. So the reason why it was that expensive was because of their situation. Most people don't need the full 15, but I do think it's good to have it as an option.
Anybody else?
Yeah, just to weigh in, the number was well, first of all, of the 2 million, there is, I think almost, I should have looked at the numbers before this, between 600 and 800,000 that's already committed to people who are moving forward with it or, are in the process. So not all of the $2 million is currently available. We also had an infusion of $500,000 in 2020 from 2020, all of the home sales that took place. Some years our infusions have been 300,000. So we do have a high number at the moment, but we can't guarantee that that is going to continue that trend. And I actually anticipate, because all these homes turned over, that there'll be a lull in the market at some point. That said, the 6,000 was determined based upon the fact that there were state grants, county grants coming out of $10,000 each that helped to offset. So some systems have cost 20,000 or a little above 20,000. Some systems have cost 53,000. So it's the 6,000 was determined based upon what was the average payout that we were that was happening at the time. And you can get $2,000 for financial hardship in addition, and you can get $2,000 for putting in a shallow drain leaching field. So there is a little flexibility there, and it can always be changed if there's an increased demand.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I'm good with
Eric?
it.
I'm sorry?
I'm good with it.
You're good with it. Okay. There is a second part of the question. I'm not sure I understand it, but maybe you will. Do you think there's a program the town could be using now, given it has this $2 million available to it? Okay, no answer to that. Let me just take one. There are a number of questions for the clerks, but they all involve credit cards. And why they're not available. We have covered that. Let me run through this again. So many of these others we have covered, and we've run out of time. And I hope that the public will keep their questions coming and participate come to the town board, ask questions, go to committee meetings, stay tuned. It's important to be active in this town. And that's what I'm going to say by way of saying adieu. If I find the right page. Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
Thank you.
moderators, colleagues, and the public for joining us. Your next step is to vote, or maybe it's to register to vote. And if you haven't registered, you have a few more days. The last day to postmark your registration or to do it online is October 8th. Today, at this recording, it's October 2nd. Election day in person is November 2nd. The last day to postmark an absentee ballot is also election day. The last day to request an absentee ballot is October 18th. All these tasks, other than direct voting, can be accomplished online. One of the sources of information is the Suffolk County Board of Elections.com. Early voting, there is early voting, but not alas on Shelter Island. Early voting is October 23rd through the 31st. But anyone may cast a ballot, including a Shelter Island ballot, at the single early voting location in each of the other Suffolk County towns. Finally, there are 5 ballot propositions to vote for or against this year. These are also listed online on the Suffolk County Board of Elections site and in the League of Women Voters publications and videos and online sites. I hope I will have more to say about this soon in the Shelter Island Reporter. but do vote. Government begins on the local level. Participate, exert your influence, and thank you.
Thank you.
You may now leave the meeting.
Thanks all. Have a great Saturday.
Thank you, you too.